And unfortunately, I'd be known more for being a cricketer rather than anything else.
The greatest in the game, Kumar Sangakkara, finally gets his opportunity under the lights here at Mirpur in Dhaka.
No one ever tells a high-performing athlete, just be yourself. And my father's advice all the time was, if you're doing something, you have to learn to do it properly. There were times when I scored 100 and he'd call me and say, that is terrible batting. We have these terrorists who shoot at the bus, throw grenades.
Helicopters were forced to airlift the Sri Lankan cricket team from a stadium in eastern Pakistan.
And suddenly we experienced 2 minutes of what our country's been going through for 20 plus years.
Never fear a storm.
Be ready to adapt.
The skill is staying true to ourselves.
Welcome to the show. We wanted to start today's conversation talking about your trophies and your memorabilia, because you don't keep them at home.
Yeah, I don't have a memorabilia room or a bar around which there are T-shirts and stuff just hung around. So I have no bats, no medals, nothing at home.
And why do you put such little store in that kind of memorabilia?
It's never really moved me. I have 3 or 4 T-shirts that I kind of treasure, but I haven't really hung them up. They're all of Murali's kind of record-breaking T-shirts, including his 800th wicket, the shirt he wore for that. And then I think I have Chaminda Vasa's 300th wicket T-shirt, but I haven't really hung them up. I don't know. I think a lot of the time I was very comfortable in kind of thinking, you're a cricketer for a while, and this is something I think my parents also kind of indoctrinated into me and all of my siblings as well, that you're different things at different times of your life, and rather than hanging on to one phase of it, it's probably better to just move on. It's tough because I'm still involved in cricket. I still commentate. I'm still involved with the Rajasthan Royals, involved in coaching and so on and so forth. But I think also with my children, they never got into cricket.
Right.
I think because of the IPL, my daughter watches a little bit now. But they've never had interest. They don't really talk about the game as much, or me as a cricketer, unless it's brought up by someone. So I think the importance of memorabilia at home was never there. My wife was also, I've known her since I was 17. So we've been through all of the whole no cricket, moving on from cricket, all of that. So it doesn't really have pride of place at home. And never did. It was important for a while and during that time, but now it's nice to be kind of free of that clutter at times.
Because you mentioned the role of your parents there, and like your dad's influence really intrigued me when we were reading about the background. The fact that he almost encouraged you to have that late bloomer mentality to be interested in lots of other things rather than just be solely fixated on cricket.
Both my parents were very insistent that all of us, my mother was very insistent on academics. My father was like, you'll get to it at the right time. A-levels, that's the most important thing. Everything else prior to that is just noise. I played cricket and tennis. So my father coached us in every sport that we did. And then I think my brother and my oldest sister, seeing the pressure and the kind of torture we went through with my father, who's kind of a perfectionist, was like, no, that's it. Thank you very much, but just leave us alone and just keep doing what you're doing with them. And my mother was very much a homemaker, and her job was all about discipline, keeping us focused, making sure that we studied properly, had time for things that were not just sports related, very strict on discipline. So it was kind of this push and pull in two various directions. And it kind of balanced us out really well. I always used to joke to my parents and to my friends saying that if I was American, I'd be in therapy, having gone through that kind of the childhood and upbringing and that kind of the not the overbearing parent, but the parents who kind of were very, very insistent that you either did the right thing or did as many things properly as possible. And my father's advice all the time was, if you are spending enough time or a lot of time doing something, you have to learn to do it properly. All the way almost till the end of my career, that influence of my parents stayed, especially with my father's coaching. And I always say this, tell people this story. I was in Australia once and playing a test match. And I was woken up very early in the morning. Hotel reception called and said, there's an urgent fax from home. And I got up in a panic saying, oh, someone's ill, something's happened. I was worried about my parents. And then I stopped and think, in the age of mobile phones, who in the hell would send a fax? And I admit, that's my father. It has to be my father. So I said, yeah, please send it up. And they do, in this big manila brown envelope. And there's four, I think, A4 sheets tucked into it. I took it out. It was just a few underlined chapters from Bradman's book on batting, saying, underlined passages saying, read this before you go out to bat tomorrow. But my mother's influence on the opposite side has stayed the same, and been that kind of really important. I think that was a really important grounding for us. And, I always go back to the fact that, when you're a kid, you go through different stages of how you understand your parents. Like, you listen to them at the start, then you doubt everything that they say, more than they ever will, especially in your teens. And I think it was Mark Twain. I remember reading this and saying, when I was 16, my father was embarrassing. He was a stupid old man, but by the time I was 21, I was amazed at what he's learned in 5 years. So it's a kind of look back that you have now, and you think how lucky I was to have that in my life from both my parents, and they took so much time out of their lives to spend it with me and my other siblings. And that influence is really a cornerstone of who I am today.
See, that puts into some real interesting context, because I was going to ask you a question about your dad's famous tweet when you retired.
but how I
did he achieve
underachieved.
his potential? Not quite. But do you think he was viewing that as more than a cricketer?
Yes, I think so. I think it gets quoted in various ways, and then there were journalists who wrote about, imagine having the pressure of, carrying all of these expectations, and maybe that's why he, really didn't explode in his battings, in his batting styles or various things. I think they all miss the point. Potential is always, I think no one really achieves their maximum potential. You always end up somewhere achieving some part of it.
Yeah.
And your potential in one field doesn't equate to your potential in other fields. You're a human being. You're capable of many things, and unfortunately, in my life, for various things, I'd be known more for being a cricketer rather than anything else. But that doesn't mean I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
And
you say unfortunately?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it is, isn't it? I mean, when you are pigeonholed or estimated to be just one, and this is another part of being in the limelight, doing something that, hundreds of thousands of millions in the way of cricket people watch and appreciate. It could be in any sport or in any sphere that is in the public eye. And all of them really don't know you. They know what you do. They know who you are a little bit with interviews, and probably a little bit more so with reality TV and cameras now in personal spaces, social media, where people tend to put out their lives quite publicly and personal aspects of their life. But in reality, there are very few people who really get to know you. And the people who really know me don't really care whether I played cricket or not. They understand that it's just one part of who I am. And there are lots of other things that they value about me or they dislike about me. And it's, not everything is about, not everything is perfect or nice about everyone. And cricket opens a lot of doors, and it has created a lot of opportunities for me after retirement as well. But I do always think that it is unfortunate that the whole world will view you or remember you through your life and beyond as having been a cricketer. Because, when you're a human being and you have so much, as you say, potential to do so many things, you end up spending quite a small part of your life, isn't it? 15 years of professional, 16 years of professional cricket that I played defines the rest of your life. Yep. And how you remember. So I always consider it being unfortunate because sometimes it does restrict you from exploring other avenues because, you go like, okay, fine, I'm used to a certain lifestyle, I have to provide X for my family. So let's keep milking this for quite a few more years and keep kind of being entrenched in that same cycle of being a cricketer and doing things in cricket. So I consider myself very fortunate in one way to be able to do that, but also unfortunate in the way that would be the sum of of who I am to many people. So I do consider it sometimes unfortunate.
When you talk about it, and even though it's in jest, you talk about the torture, or you talk about, if I was American, I'd be in therapy. Was there ever a period where you said to your dad, look, just be a dad. Like, you don't need to be a coach all the time. Let's just be in flow and love each other and sort of explore the world.
I think that was always there. I mean,
Yeah.
there was never a period of time when, I or my siblings would ever doubt that they loved us. I think in Sri Lanka, there are various ways that your parents show it.
Yeah.
It's not always saying, oh, I love you, or always, giving you a big hug. There are various ways that you show it. And, in the modern world, I look at it, how I am with my children. I tell them I love them constantly, and, hug them, or try to hug my son, and he's always pushing me away, and I get, this surly teenager. But, looking back, I think as children, I think you have to understand, or as members of a family, you must understand how love is shown. And you have to be very comfortable with that, because it's not about setting demands and there's a certain way of showing it. There are various different ways of showing it. Sometimes it doesn't have to be said. And that was very much the case when I was growing up. Whether it was at any single time that when we needed our parents, they were always there.
Yeah.
All the luxuries that they didn't have when they were growing up. I mean, I grew up in a very comfortable environment, economically very, very, and financially very stable. My father worked really hard to provide us, all the nice things that we wanted. I never wanted for equipment to play cricket or tennis, and none of my siblings did. When I was young and starting on cricket or tennis, I would be woken up on a weekend, 6 a.m, and he'd come and badger me until I woke up. I'd pretend to be asleep, so I would kind of delay the inevitable, but then I'd be up off the bed. At the back of the house, he's built half a tennis wall, what was a badminton court, which then doubled up as a throwdown kind of area for cricket. And he'd throw tennis balls at me and have me doing shadow cricket or tennis or both. And it would be sometimes 3.5, 4 hours at a stretch. And his clients who had appointments with him would come. And my mother would come and say, why don't you let the poor boy have some breakfast? He said, yeah, we will get to it, but he's got to get these things right. And then his clients would be waiting. And he'd say, listen, tell them I'm spending time with my son. And his clients would sometimes get annoyed. Or he'd say, if they don't want to stay, they can come back another day. When I look back now, if someone didn't love their children that much, they wouldn't spend that much time with them. And it was never a question with my father that he was trying to live his dreams vicariously through me or achieve something through me. He said, well, it doesn't matter whether you play for your country or you do this professionally or not. If you're doing something, learn about it, learn the culture, learn the history, learn the technique, and do it really well. So there were times when I scored 100 and he'd call me and say, oh, that is terrible batting. And there'd be times when I scored 20 runs. He said, that's the best you've ever batted. So it is never about the runs. Yeah. It's always about the method, in his words, perfection. I always now very strongly believe perfection is impossible. Excellence is very possible. And that's what you should chase. And he was a man of many interests. On Tuesdays, I had to do British history with him. And on Thursdays, he'd try to teach me a bit of Latin. He'd throw me a book on Monday when I was growing up, and he'd say questions on Friday. So I had to finish reading it. So I was like pushed and pulled for various things, not just sport. He'd sometimes come and tell me if he's traveling to another city for one of his cases, he'd say, what are you doing today? I'm going to school. No, forget going to school. Get in the back of my car. We're going. So he'd take me, cut school.
I love that.
Take me out, and then he'd feed me, wild boar or venison. I said, don't tell your mother, and show me kind of all these kind of historical things in Sri Lanka, historical sites. He'd take us all on family trips to various places, and both he and my mother, I think, filled each hour, minute of their day with purpose. And it is really funny and really moving to. My son asked my mother, because he believes that my mother has this secret genetic cheat code for youth, because my mother is 84 and touch wood, she looks a very young 84. So my son always says, I hope I've got her genes. And so he asked her once, how do you stay so young and how do you stay so active? And she told my son, all I do is I wake up and I want to fill my day with purpose. And everything I do, I need to have purpose. And I thought that was great advice. It's very simple advice. And my mother was a homemaker, raised 4 children. And still, when we go, she'll entertain us, our friends, our families, our children, and she loves doing it. And all of those things that she does gives her purpose in life. And I thought that's a great life lesson for my children as well, and for all of us, even at this age, to look and say, yeah, that's great. You don't have to do, purpose is found in what really moves you, keeps you interested, that you're passionate about, and that you want to do well. And sometimes they're small things, sometimes they're big things. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And so it's a very personal thing about how you look at life and what you do.
There was a 2023 study on identity work in athletes that showed that when an athlete's sense of self is tied too tightly to performance, it means they're more likely to struggle with injuries, transitions. When they face retirement, they seem to get caught in a bit of a web. If there was somebody listening to this that needs to face a transition in any career or any aspects of their life, what have you learned about how to do that so elegantly?
I grew up in a Buddhist household, but I'm married to a Christian. My wife is a very devout, spiritual Christian, an Anglican. She goes to any church, and she's gone to evangelical churches of charismatic Christianity. And I went to an Anglican school, Trinity College in Kandy. So I've been to church service more than I've probably gone to the Buddhist temple. There was this really key moment at one stage some years ago. I'm not sure how many years ago. And she was at one of her friends' houses, and there was this pastor. I believe the pastor was from South India. And I remember very clearly this pastor saying how important it is to know the difference between skill and identity, what you do and who you are. And that really stayed with me. And I think coming back to your question about that separation, to me is vital. So when I'm now, I coach and I'm director of cricket for Rajasthan Royals, I spend a lot of time talking to young cricketers who are with me about this difference, about skill and identity. Who you are is vitally important because it impacts the way you do what you do. And keeping who you are really separate from your skill and understanding that there is a difference gives you perspective and allows you the freedom to be more than just tied to your skill. And that's a very important differentiation to me. It's something I talk to my children about. It's something I talk to young cricketers about. And I believe that gives you a sense of calm. It gives you, as I said, perspective. And it gives you the ability to know that all of these things are finite. They end. There's an expiry date.
Yep.
And it's okay. And it also gives you the ability to really look at what you do and understand how you can do it better. Because sometimes it really frustrates me when I think about people who come and tell me let's talk about cricket. This is how I play. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? This is how you play. Are you telling me that this is it for you? You can't change. There's no beyond this. There's no one more step beyond it. Now, I played cricket. I changed every single fundamental about my game because my father brought me up saying, change is inevitable. Get ahead of it. Because if you stay still, you stagnate. So I've had teammates ask him, why are you changing your grip? Why are you changing your stance? Why are you changing your tapping of the bat? That is your basis. Why are you doing this? Why? And sometimes I'm just curious. I want to see if there's anything else I can do. Sometimes it's just a technique to try and get my mind off something that's really worrying me about my technique, and I'll just try something else. And other times it's like, well, what I'm doing right now doesn't feel as, I'm not in rhythm. Mm. So I need to do something to get through this little period of time. So I need to change. But a lot of the changes I've made has always driven me forward.
Okay.
So that self-awareness of it's the same as a person. You keep changing. You have your fundamental core values, but around it you change, you develop, you improve. You can regress as well. But you're always trying to drive it forward. So there's nothing in life that you can say that you can't change. My players and my management and my coaching staff laugh at me sometimes because I started my last 3 seasons of coaching in IPL. with a phrase by Heraclitus: no one ever steps in the same river twice, because it's not the same man and it's not the same river.
That's my favourite quote.
Right? So
because all of us are so fixed. We live like trees, right?
Correct.
We're rigid. I love the phrase, hold your beliefs lightly.
And this is the thing, right? We turn up, I always bring it to the IPL, and I always say, listen, we're playing the same tournament, but it is not the same tournament this year, and you're not the same person you were, 6 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's good. It's not a bad thing. But we've got to find, those are the things that we have to understand. That's the difference between skill and identity. But if you are secure in your identity, then it impacts powerfully what you do and how you do it.
There was a point a little while ago where I looked at all the supplements in my kitchen cupboard, and my wife laughs about this even now, and she's like, what has happened here? And honestly, I didn't realise that all of the supplements that I was taking had got so complicated. But I think it's because I was trying to be a dad, trying to be a partner to Harriet, trying to run a couple of businesses, trying to find time to host this podcast. And I suppose really what I needed was less things in my life and just a few things that actually work. And I think there's a myth that I'd like to debunk at this point, right? It's that high performance doesn't mean trying to chase everything. It doesn't mean finding every hack. It doesn't mean squeezing more into every single day. Sometimes the best performers, and they've told us this when they've been in this studio, they just prioritize simplicity. They only master the fundamentals. And to be honest, I think I've learned this the hard way through trial and error. And I think I now realize that nothing is more fundamental than fueling your body with the right nutrition. And I believe this helps. Vitals by Heights is nutrition without the noise. Just 2 capsules, 6 seconds, 0 effort. And in here, all the essential nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the healthy fats that are designed to power energy, focus, recovery, and sleep. So we're talking about no mixing, no nonsense, just everything you need in the right doses. And I think if something takes longer than about 10 seconds, I'm out. Luckily, this takes about 6, so you're fine. So why don't you strip your health routine back and just focus on what matters? Head to heights.com/Jake or enter code HP20 at checkout for 20% off your first month. I promise you, I believe this stuff really works. Huge thanks to Owen Mitchell for partnering with us on today's episode. On this show, we talk so often about defining moments, those points in your life where the decision you make really matters. And it's not just in sport or in business, but it's also in your personal life as well. And that is where legal experts Owen and Mitchell come in. Whether you're planning for the future, whether you're going through a separation, you're thinking about inheritance tax, or maybe protecting your property and your legacy, they're complex, high-stakes moments. You've got to get them right, and you need lawyers who understand both the details and the bigger picture. Owen Mitchell's private client team offer a personalised service built around your needs, bringing clarity and confidence for when it matters most. And like all high performers, they start out by listening. Find out more at irwinmitchell.com. That's irwinmitchell.com.
People who improve the fastest in any field that they do are the people who are the most self-aware, who understand not just their strengths, but also their weaknesses, how challenge either motivates them or cows them, or how you react under pressure. How does being emotional work for you or not? How do you, and these are, how do you compartmentalize? Yeah. I always think professional athletes at any level have certain things that are off kilter, that are not really good in a healthy human being, because you have to be ruthless, you have to be selfish, you have to have all the good stuff in you, but you have to have some sort of edge that really drives you at the expense of a lot of things in your life to be able to perform at a level that is required to be called excellent or to be recognized as one of the best, if that's your goal. And it's great if you can have balance off the field where you can relate really healthily to your family and your friends and to other human beings. But that is not what you do on the field or on a tennis court. It is very much how driven you are to succeed in that moment and do it relentlessly over and over and over again.
So you made that distinction before, that you said your dad demanded perfection, and you said that's not possible, but chasing excellence is. So what are the dark side of chasing excellence that you've seen athletes have to embrace? And then the second question is, how do you learn to uncouple that, to leave that on the field so it doesn't impact?
It all depends on coping mechanisms and your support structure, I always believe. Everyone has different mental capacities to deal with both the good and the adversities that come with this. And you need to really develop that and be really focused on it. I kind of learned things by accident, by trial and error and experience. And the greatest thing is expectation, your own others, the frustration at not being able to achieve what you believe that you can achieve, the ending of things, either prematurely or even at what is, at a day of your own choosing, the fear of, who am I? What do I do next? What's left? So coping mechanisms are absolutely important, and to be able to have a support structure that allows you time away from the sport so that you're not overwhelmed, so that you have something that takes you away from the sport, that allows you to come back refreshed, to be able to focus completely on the sport. I grew up with a lot of ex-cricketers saying, you have to be able to live and breathe and eat and drink 24 hours a day to be able to be successful. And I think that's the worst advice you can ever get, because you're asking someone to completely immerse their self, their personality, everything about themselves into being measured by how successful they are on the field or not. And that's such a dangerous place, in my view. Support structure in having good people around you, healthy relationships, whether it's with your families, with your friends, it's with mentors, whoever it is in your life, you need to have a small circle of people that you can turn to, where you feel safe and you feel as if there are no conditions attached to their relationship to you and how they relate to you and how they see you and how they value you. And that's very important. And those are things that are very difficult to find in the modern day and in the fields, in professional sports or things that you do in the limelight. So those two things to me are critically important. And you see why people turn to things. Escapism is why a lot of people watch sport, right? It's fun, it's enjoyable, it makes us forget the humdrum, mundane things in life. And you watch this incredible display of athleticism, sportsmanship, jeopardy. You feel drawn to some people, you hate other people, you don't know why you hate them, and the athletes that are on the court, they need escapism as well. So you see people turning to various things, whether it's drugs or alcohol or other unhealthy. And then you get people who have both the healthy and the unhealthy. And then you have people who have a more healthy relationship to things that give them relief from that relentless drive. And everyone's different, sports people around the world, men and women, are held to a very high standard, thought to be icons and all of that. And it's human beings, and that pressure to live up to expectations, not just of being a great performer, but being this wholesome, wonderful person of it. It all adds up, and no one ever tells a high performing athlete, just be yourself. Just being themselves, you might find them to be a bit of a dick, a bit annoying, not nice. But if you meet the same person who's just like that on the street, you might be like, that's who he is. But you expect so much more from people, because you're thinking children watch them and they'll grow up. And I believe that everyone carries a great sense of responsibility to people who watch them and how you are and how you behave. And sometimes when you are with people that you feel completely safe, you might not be as likable as you might be, in the public eye. But those are all okay as long as I think you have a healthy relationship with what you do.
Yeah.
And what you do away from your central skill that actually feeds good, positive things into you and to those around you. And that's not an easy thing always in the modern world.
This is one of the challenges with people looking for escapism from their life. This is a clip from one of our other podcasts here called On the Mend, and this has had 11 million views in the last few days. And I think this will resonate with exactly what you've just said.
Porn equals loneliness sold as sex. Alcohol equals escape sold as fun. Drugs equal numbness sold as peace. Scrolling equals distractions sold as rest. Fast food equals poison sold as pleasure. Luxury equals emptiness sold as purpose. Fucking hell. Smoking equals addiction sold as relaxation. Notifications equal control sold as importance. And social media equals validation sold as friendship. Don't feed the best parts of being human with artificial fuel.
The real thing about, that clip is if you are completely unaware when you do subscribe to some of the things that he says. Or you could be aware and you say, yeah, I know this is control. I know, as long as it doesn't consume your life. Whether that's what you choose to do or not is up to really you. But I think the really important thing is to understand what it means.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times when you subsume yourself, your identity to what you do, to what you consume, I think that's when you kind of don't really understand that you are being what these addictions or what these things that are sold to you are couched in, and you just kind of lose yourself in it. And it is true, right? I mean, you see the stories of so many incredible athletes, and ultimately all the great stories and also kind of the not so great, maybe the tragedies. I mean, in cricket, there was a time when post-career suicides were extremely high in cricket. But it's all part of the human condition. And these are not things that you don't see in other spheres of life. Maybe in just, what you might say is a more mundane existence. It's just that you notice these highs and lows and tragedies and successes a lot more in people that are in the public eye. We sometimes forget that for a lot of us, we're not in extremes. We're not the best of the best or the worst of the worst. We exist in between all of that. And a lot of these experiences in others go unnoticed. And we take lessons from the best and the worst. And if those lessons are good and they add something and they help you understand your life more or help you with dealing with your life more, it's great. But I don't see anything unique in some of the life experiences that professional sportsmen and women go through. I think it is all part of the human condition. You are just doing something that people watch, notice, and consume a lot more than compared to other careers or other lives of other people.
I mean, really, we're talking about identity, and if you don't have identity, the rest of your life really can be a struggle. So whether you're working with your own children or with young cricketers or people in a business setting or anyone listening to this, if they don't even know how to begin working out what their identity is, what should they do? What questions should they be asking themselves?
I think the key is to be comfortable with being who you are, the good and the bad, the weaknesses and the strengths, and really look at how does it impact me, and as importantly, how does it impact those in my life that I deem very important. The good and the positive has to outweigh the rest, but you can't escape the negatives.
I think we should pause at this moment to reflect on the fact that the modern human existence is algorithms showing you only the things that you believe in. Therefore, you build your beliefs around that. And in a total inability to hear someone else's point of view. Look at what happens around the world. As soon as someone has a different point of view, it turns to aggression and anger and horrendous acts, which we're seeing all the time. It's absolutely fascinating the way that the modern world is not geared up for what you've just said, which is about tolerance and understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, well,
right? And it's had a very tumultuous kind of history all the way through. But even in my lifetime, we got our independence in 1948. I was born in 1977. In 1983, we had anti-Tamil riots. That was not just the first time, but political turmoil from when we got our independence till 83. Then the start of a war that finished only in 2009. I grew up at a time where we had so much strife in the country between fellow Sri Lankans, and racism in Sri Lanka was not about the color of the skin. We had natural disasters, hundreds of thousands, 100,000 plus people on every side dying. We had civil insurgencies, and it ingrained a huge amount of civic responsibility, especially when I started playing cricket. When my parents in 1983 had a huge number of our closest friends who were Tamil, hidden in our house, away from the goon squads in Sri Lanka. It kind of ingrained in you that you had a responsibility to others as well. And those are things you can't escape in life. It is constant, no matter what you do, whichever country you live in. Cricket was something that really united the country. And you think, oh, really, a sport like cricket? What are you talking about? You're too full of yourself. But I grew up in a country where whatever ethnicity you belong to, when you played cricket, it's almost as if there was no war, there was no trouble. Everyone would watch this and would celebrate together because they felt that, this is how our country should live as well. We had different people in our team with different religions, different ethnicities, all playing together. Even though as Sri Lankans, we haven't learned everything from those lessons, and we are still a very tumultuous, volatile, divided country, we have a large part of our population who have learned and are trying to do things differently and be better to each other. And when we played cricket, we always had that sense of civic duty ingrained in us, that when you played cricket for Sri Lanka, you were doing something a little bit more, different than just playing cricket. So do what you can off the field as much as possible. You don't have to be in the public eye, but do things that help others.
I mean, there's that great line that you once said that when you played for Sri Lanka, you weren't playing for a team, you were playing for 20 million people. For anyone watching or listening to this, Kumar, how can you take a team and leave it better then? Because you did that under the magnifying glass of 20 million eyes watching you.
It is interesting, and I think it differs to each kind of context and situation that you're in. And when I played cricket, it's very different to the team that is playing now.
Yeah.
And I think the context under which they play is very different. And I think it's harder now with so much scrutiny and so much social media and so much being amplified around them. When we played, it's a lot quieter. The external noise was quieter. For me, in an international side or a national side, defining your culture becomes much easier. So you have your values, you have your identity as a side, the style of play, everything. So your identity, who you are as a unit, all these different individuals coming together, finding a common cause and being able to bring their own perspectives and own value to it is really important. How you define that, how you get everyone to buy in, and you underpin it with really good values when you can.
So what were the values that you had at Sri Lanka?
In Sri Lanka, I think when you look back, we didn't have a defined culture. So at Rajasthan Royals, I did an exercise in culture. And we came up with thinking, okay, what is it that we do from an Indian context and a global context with the IPL? It's we want to help people dream big.
Yeah.
Right. And look at this and say, yeah, I want to do that. So what are the values that underpin that? So for us, it's care, it's courage, and trust. And it defines who we are as individuals, how we want to play, how we relate to each other, how we relate to the fans, how we do everything that we do when we're in the IPL is defined by those three values and the behaviors that come under it. So what are the do's, what are the don'ts? And I think in a franchise, when you have so many different people from different backgrounds and different countries coming together, it's very important to really define that. Because the franchise owns the culture. And once you define that culture and you have that and everyone bought into it and it comes from the players, you just don't change your culture every season. You don't. Anyone who comes in goes, we value you as you are. But when you come in here, this is who we are. And that cultural fit is as important as your skill. Even though in sport, the biggest mover of the needle is your skill. Within that cultural framework, you can carry net neutrals, you can carry net positives, and perhaps one or two net negatives because everyone else, kind of offsets it. In a national side, sometimes because you are from one kind of country, your experiences are not hugely different. Of course, there could be difference in your economic or financial status, how you grew up, but you kind of have this, in Sri Lanka, it's 20 million people. It's not a huge amount when you really think about it. And we interact with each other all the time as a national side. It's not that you have to fly in to train. We're all based in and around Colombo, even though I'm from Kandy. And you see each other all the week. So you spend a lot of time together and you kind of have that innate understanding of each other. So when you come into a team, and we start talking about what we wanted to do. In 2007, going to the World Cup, we actually said, okay, who are we? What are we going to do? And that was the first time we started kind of defining it. How do we want to train? How do we want to carry ourselves off the field? How do we want to play? And we had a little slogan that said, we are for ourselves. We are there for each other.
Nice.
Not just us as a team, but the whole country. This is what we wanted to go and play the World Cup like. But I think we've always had that kind of that undefined culture. And I think if you do an exercise, it's very easy to kind of then distill it and get to a place where everyone agrees. I think you'll have very little disagreement, which is very different. And once you have that, and you have that kind of purpose that's a little bit beyond just winning a trophy, but your short-term goal is to win the trophy. But how you do it, how you play, and what you want to really leave behind, the influence, it defines something a lot more. I think when you play with that purpose and you understand, actually, if I start this journey off and I can't get to the end of it, it's okay, because you've left the kind of the roadmap for others to keep going. That to me is leadership, and that is service.
I bet you get your car MOT done regularly. Even if it's not driving perfectly, you still know that you need to check about what's happening under the bonnet, right? And I actually think we should treat our health exactly the same way. That's why here on High Performance, I'm really proud that we've partnered with Randox Health. With their Everyman Health Assessment, you get a full body MOT. This is a test that looks at up to 150 different health markers like liver, kidney, heart, prostate health, hormones, and so much more. We're talking about the stuff that you just can't see from the outside. I also like the fact there's no GP referral needed. There's no long wait times. Like, you could literally have your test booked before I finish reading this. And after booking an appointment online, you can visit one of their local clinics in the UK and Ireland and get your test results within 2 hours of your sample reaching the lab. It shows you where your body's at right now. It also helps you spot potential risks early before they turn into something bigger. You can get personalised, practical advice so that you can take control of your health today and into the future. They also offer an Every Woman Health Assessment designed with women's health in mind. So keep your body running properly. Book your test today and save 20% thanks to us on all their health checks with the code HP20 at randoxhealth.com. That's the code HP20 for 20% off at randoxhealth.com. This episode is sponsored by Xero Accounting Software. We talk often on this podcast about the moments that define a career or a business. Well, for 2.7 million sole traders and landlords in the UK, we're now approaching the biggest change to personal tax in over 30 years. Making tax digital, or MTD, for income tax. Now, for many, this carries a real sense of anxiety, a fear of more admin and more costs. But actually, we want to help you change the way you see MTD. From April, if your combined turnover from self-employment or property is over £50,000, you'll need to keep digital records and send quarterly updates to HMRC. Now, this might feel overwhelming, but instead, you should see it as the ultimate opportunity to finally get a better grip on your finances. By starting early with Xero, you replace that end-of-year scramble with confidence. You get a clear, real-time view of your estimated tax bill after every update, meaning no more surprises. You get simplicity, ditching the paperwork to snap receipts on the go and letting bank transactions flow in automatically. And you get value, one place, one price to manage your business and property income in just one place. So don't just aim to survive the deadline. Use this as the catalyst to digitize, to automate, to lead your business with a clear, real-time picture of your performance. Get Making Tax Digital ready with 90% off Xero for 6 months. Just visit xero.com/performance. That's Xero with an X. Terms apply. In this creation of culture, can I just ask you briefly about the sort of the more hard skills? The sledging, the wit, the communication with your teammates. Which hard skill do you think was the thing that did the most for the Sri Lankan team?
I think the catalyst for what brought us really together was an external event in, I think it was 95 first, when Murali was called for chucking. And you had Arjuna Ranatunga almost take the people off the field in Australia. Yeah. I think Daryl Hero, Emerson. It happened twice, but the first time it happened was pre-World Cup, I think. And that was the first time, I think, that the entire country, and Murali is Tamil. The first time, I think, suddenly you looked at this side. You had Sinhalese, you had Tamil, you had this, you had that, you had from different schools, you're from, different backgrounds, all of it. I think that was the first time the countries kind of said, no, hold on a minute. What are you doing to our player? He's our boy. He's ours. This player is ours. And you had this country suddenly kind of embrace this team as like, no one's going to do this to our team. It's so unfair. You can't,
Yeah.
And that was kind of the rallying call, the first time where you had this kind of identity, this separation of being kind of this colonial heirloom cricket to being, no, this is now ours. This is ours. That 95, 96
that brought
really
you together.
Brought us together and really, like said, this sport is for everyone. And every Sri Lankan loves this team. And every single player, irrespective of ethnicity, religion, background, social status, they're ours. We're going to love them the same. We're going to back them the same. And I think that really brought the team together, and that really brought the country behind the team. And that kind of identity that we suddenly saw because of that issue was, I think, the most important catalyst in setting that forward. So I think we never forgot that. We never forgot that when we played, because that was always something I remember, that 96 World Cup and the 2 years leading up to it, what the team went through, and then how we kind of evolved from there onwards. But that grounding, that kind of embracing of us from our country was, I would say, that was a single, I don't know whether it's soft or hard skill, but I think that was what always resonated. So that led to Arjuna Ranatunga saying, what the hell, man? We fuck you to to kind of being dominated on the field and being sledged at. We are like, no, we are more than equal to doing the same to you, and we are more than capable of beating the best in the world as long as we believe. And now we do.
So it lit a fire,
and that's what led to us being such. I mean, to me going in, I was a little bit too much into kind of the verbals, because that was kind of, hold on a minute, I'm carrying on a legacy until I realized it's better to keep your mouth shut and get your work done. I think that is what really set us off into that, because, from 2003, my first World Cup, until I retired in 2014, we made 5 World Cup finals, a couple of semi-finals, and we were probably the most consistent side, and we won one in 2014. That was an incredible run for us. It's all driven by that.
And not just like that incredible run and your incredible set of achievements. The thing that jumped out for me, Kumar, when I was reading about your story, was the incident in Lahore where a bullet whizzes past your head. Now, we've met with different soldiers, different people that have been at the sharp end of conflict on this podcast, that some of them talk about the very different reactions to it. Some get stuck in that moment for a long time. Some of them, it gives them a greater sense of perspective. I'm interested in your own reaction to it.
It was quite interesting. Luckily for me, I haven't been stuck in that moment. I remember it with gratitude because no one died. I had Tilan Samaravira, who was lying on who got really badly injured, shot through his leg. I had Taranga Parnavitana sitting in front of me who had a bullet lodged in his chest, luckily in his sternum. It's incredible that out of all those bullets that were shot at the bus, that no one really died. We had Ajanta Mendes with shrapnel. We had other injuries.
And for people listening or watching that don't know the story, would you just explain?
Yeah, so 2009, we were playing. We played, I think, the first test in Karachi on an absolute road. It was, I think, 600 play 500. We get to Lahore. At the end of the second day, we were 555 declared, and they were 100 for one. That's also run out, and which is again another road. And we're in the hotel, third day, going to the ground, and fast bowler seated in front says, this is terrible. This is, my back's going to break on these fat tracks. I hope a bomb goes off. And we go home. Not even like a minute later, we get attacked. And everyone's on the bus. We have these terrorists who shoot at the bus, throw grenades, shoot an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade that misses us. Few of us get injured. I had shrapnel down in my right shoulder, and I still have shrapnel down my right side. We were airlifted. The tour, of course, was cancelled. We were airlifted to the Air Force base, and a few hours later, we were flown into Sri Lanka. I remember, of course, there were some of us who were emotional. Suranga Lakmal, who was a fast bowler, this is his debut tour, and it really affected him badly. We had a few scars, emotional, of course, as to be expected with Tilan and Paul Fabres, who was also injured, who was our assistant coach at the time. I haven't had any nightmares or or visitations back to what could have happened, or waking up in cold sweats. But what it did give me was this sense of deep gratitude and perspective on what was happening in Sri Lanka at the time. I mean, we were going through a war, the last stages of the war in 2009. And this happened to us for 2 minutes and we made headline news. And this has been happening to so many people in Sri Lanka on both sides, with, soldiers, civilians who are caught between the LTT and the Sri Lanka army. Unfortunately, in this war, and all these people were going through this as daily in their lives, and it gives you a real sense of appreciation for the lives of people, the lives that were lost, what the country was going through. And I remember a few weeks after we came back, I was driving through Colombo, and I was stopped by, I think it was either Air Force or Navy officer who was manning a roadblock. And in those days, roadblocks, and before that, roadblocks were everywhere, and they would search cars for suicide bombs and arms, or checking for it. It's a crazy job to have to be manning a roadblock, because if you stop the right vehicle, more often than not, you're dead.
Yeah.
And the officer stopped the car, and he saw me, and first question he asked me, "Oh my God, how are you?" I said, "I'm okay." And he goes, we watched the news, and we were so shocked, and we were so upset and sad, like, for you guys to get shot. And I made this comment saying, "Yeah, but it happens to you and your unit and your fellow soldiers all the time." And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, but that's what we've signed up for. You guys are our heroes. This shouldn't happen to you." And I'm thinking, how in the world are we, we play cricket, we play this game, we paid well for it, we travel the world, and suddenly we experience 2 minutes of what our country's been going through for 20 plus years, 26 years, and suddenly we are heroes. It really brings home to you. And and gratitude has formed a great part of who we are, who I am, who we are as a family. And my wife always tells our children this. She always tells them, when you wake up, think of things that you are grateful for. Think of 3 things, 4 things every day that you're really grateful for in your life. I said, that's a great way to start your day off. And I was reading up on gratitude, and I strongly believe that it's one of the greatest tools to help you deal with pressure.
Yeah.
In performance, when you're on the cusp of a game going either way, and you're feeling, if you're able to stand there and think, how great is it that I am here, that I have this opportunity, and if I don't do it, it's fine, but to be able to have this opportunity, I think it really grounds you and brings you back to kind of understanding what you have to do and how you want to do it. And I think gratitude is such a powerful tool to take away fear and take away those weight of expectations and take away pressure, performance or otherwise, where you're sitting there thinking, wow.
I love that. What an incredible conversation. What a lovely way to finish. Would you finish with one thing that you're grateful for?
I'm very, very grateful for my family and everyone who shared my life, my wife, my children, my parents, my siblings, and all my friends. I think that's been the greatest privilege of my life, to be able to share my entire journey with people that I love and who love me in return.
Amazing. Kumar Sangakkara, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Damian.
Jake.
I thought that was a really interesting conversation with one of the greatest cricketers the world's ever seen, but pretty much nothing to do with cricket, which I loved. And, the fact that phrase he used, no man steps in the same river twice, for the man has changed and so has the river.
Perk up like a meerkat.
That is basically my entire take on life. And I think he's got a really smart, sensible, grounded approach to what life is really about.
One of my favourite books that I've read over the last 10 years is by a science writer called David Epstein, and the book's called Range. So anyone listening to this that is interested in this topic, go and get it. Because he talks about this idea of, if you have a variety of interests, especially for like young athletes, he talks about like go and play different sports, go and do different things, go and read different books. And it's been proven that you have a longer, more successful career over the long run because you've just got this sense of perspective. You've got this ability to adapt. You've got a greater level of resilience.
So psychology backs up the things that
Psychology
Kumar's
backs
talking
up
about.
exactly what Kumar's talking about and what his dad was teaching him about. If you're going to do something, do it well for the time you're doing it, but also have a variety of other interests. I think this early specialisation is a dangerous road that we're going down. And I think what Kumar offers us here is that really fascinating insight of being interested and having a variety of other options. So it allows you to not only change in the sport, but then to be able to make that transition out of sport and still be a happy, healthy, grounded individual.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you, mate.
No, that was, to me, really, really special to hear somebody that's been at the sharp end of performance for a long time, but equally has made that transition to be successful in other aspects of his life.
Fully agree. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you like these spiritual chats, there's plenty of them from us here on High Performance. So please make sure that you hit subscribe. And maybe there's someone in your life that you think they just need to hear what Kumar had to say. Send them the episode and I'm sure they'd be grateful. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time here on High Performance.